After the divorce, the cold and elegant panicked, I'll give you the position of Mrs. Marcus, but don't expect me to love you. For 3 years of marriage, his dress shirts were never without lipstick stains. Until I found that contract in his home office, he had married me to ward off misfortune for his moonlight love. I smiled as I signed the divorce papers, then turned around and married his business rival. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. At the celebration banquet for his successful acquisition, my new husband lightly wrapped his arm around my waist and chuckled, "Mr. Marcus, allow me to introduce my wife." As he crushed his wine glass and lunged forward, I gently swirled my red wine and whispered, "I forgot to tell you, that whole warding off misfortune thing? I made it up." Grace's fingertips brushed the cold bathroom doorknob. She paused for a moment before pushing it open. Amidst the steam, Marcus had just finished showering. A bath towel was loosely wrapped around his waist, water droplets rolling down his chiseled abs and disappearing further down. He was shaving in front of the mirror, his jawline sharp and cold, not sparing her a single glance. Grace's gaze, however, fell on the white dress shirt draped over the bathroom vanity. At the collar, a hint of crimson stood out, starkly imprinted. It wasn't her shade, she never wore such a vibrant, bold red. Her heart felt as if it had been pricked by countless fine needles, not intensely, but a prolonged, dull ache instantly spread. She lowered her eyes, walked over, and silently picked up the dress shirt, preparing to toss it into the laundry hamper. "Put it down," the man's deep voice rumbled. It was devoid of emotion, yet carried his usual commanding tone. Grace's fingers tightened, the fabric crumpling in her palm. Marcus watched her through the mirror, a cold smile playing on his lips. "It's just a piece of clothing, Mrs. Marcus." He emphasized the title. "Are you really so bothered by it?" What she couldn't stand was more than just a piece of clothing. For 3 years, the lipstick stains on his dress shirts, the perfume scents on his collars, had never ceased. From initial hysteria to silent questioning, she was now left with only helpless numbness. "No," she heard her own dry voice say. "It's just dirty, it needs to be washed." He didn't stop her again. Turning around, his damp hair brushed against his forehead. His gaze, deep and unreadable, fixed on her. "Grandpa hopes we'll be on time for the family gathering next weekend." Always Grandpa hopes. This marriage, from the very beginning, was engineered by Grandpa, who used half his fortune as a threat to force Marcus to marry her, this woman supposedly destined for prosperity and extreme nobility. Marcus never believed in such things, so he resented this marriage, and by extension, he detested her, the wife forced upon him. Grace tossed the dress shirt into the laundry hamper, the splash of red stinging her eyes. "Understood." He brushed past her, bringing a clean, crisp scent of shower gel, but it couldn't dispel the faint, sweet perfume of another woman that clung to Grace's nose. Two home office secret had fallen deep. Marcus hadn't returned to the bedroom yet, likely in his home office, dealing with his endless business matters. Grace lay in bed, wide awake. Every detail of the past 3 years replayed in her mind like a film reel. Before the marriage, she too had harbored youthful fantasies about this commercial giant, but reality had quickly shattered them. He had given her the prestige of being Mrs. Marcus, yet he was stingy with even a shred of warmth. His world, she couldn't enter, and he didn't want her in it. Terribly thirsty, she got up and went downstairs to the kitchen for water. Passing the home office, she noticed the door ajar, with light spilling out. As if by an unseen force, she walked toward it. Marcus wasn't inside. The computer screen was still lit, and the desk was somewhat messy. Her gaze swept across the room, finally settling on a document peeking from the drawer. The color of the file wasn't ordinary, it didn't look like a typical corporate contract. Her heart inexplicably quickened. She walked over and gently pulled open the drawer. Inside was a private agreement, already several years old, its paper edges slightly yellowed. She pulled out the document, her eyes falling on the title, Equity and Additional Agreement. Party A was Marcus, and Party B was Eleanor, his legendary first love whom he couldn't have and who eventually went abroad. Grace's fingers began to grow cold. She forced herself to keep reading. The initial sections contained complex equity trust details, until, at the very end, that handwritten additional clause, like a poison dagger, plunged brutally into her heart. Should Marcus and Ms. Grace's marriage last less than 5 years, 10% of Sterling shares under his name will automatically transfer to Ms. Eleanor. This clause aims to ensure Ms. Grace's prosperity-bringing destiny blesses Sterling for a sufficient period, during which her presence will ward off destined calamities for Eleanor. Warding off calamity. So that was it. Her 3-year marriage, which she had deluded herself into believing was real, was not just a transaction, but a vicious deception. He had married her not because of Grandpa's pressure, nor for any potential, minuscule affection, but solely because of some absurd warding off misfortune claim, using her existence to shield his beloved moonlight love from an imaginary disaster. And she, a living, breathing person, her youth, her feelings, in the eyes of these high and mighty individuals, she was merely a tool to be exploited, a sacrificial artifact. An immense sense of absurdity and a sharp pain instantly seized her, making it almost impossible to breathe. She gripped the edge of the desk, barely steadying herself, her fingertips white from the force. Footsteps echoed from outside the home office, growing closer. Grace abruptly shoved the document back into its place and closed the drawer. She took a deep breath, and the moment Marcus pushed the door open, she stood with her back to him, pretending to arrange books on the bookshelf. "Why aren't you asleep yet?" His voice held a trace of fatigue. Grace didn't turn around, fearing he would see her pale face and the surging hatred in her eyes. "I'm just about to." Her voice was so calm it surprised even herself. She hurried out of the home office, returned to the bedroom, and closed the door. Leaning against the cold door panel, her body finally began to tremble uncontrollably. It wasn't sadness, it was fury, the kind of rage that wanted to destroy everything, fueled by complete clarity. The next day, Marcus seemed to sense something was off with her, and he was even more silent than usual. At the dining table, he uncharacteristically initiated conversation. "There's a reception tonight, I'd like you to accompany me." In the past, she would have secretly rejoiced at such a rare invitation and meticulously dressed up. But now, she only felt mockery. "I'm not feeling well, I want to rest." She lowered her eyes, taking small sips of milk. Marcus frowned, assessing her. "As you wish." He got up and left, without the slightest concern for what was bothering her. Watching his resolute departing figure, the last flicker of faint light in Grace's eyes completely extinguished. She took out her phone and dialed a number she had almost never proactively contacted. "Hello?" A deep, pleasant male voice came from the other end, carrying a hint of surprise. "Mr. Owen," Grace's voice was soft, yet unusually firm, "is your last proposal still valid?" The person on the other end paused, then understood. "Of course. Have you changed your mind, Miss Grace?" "Yes." She looked at the overcast sky outside the window, stating each word clearly. "I need your help. In return, I will do my best to provide you with the information you desire from within Sterling." Owen, Marcus's strongest rival in the business world. A low chuckle came from the other end. "The honor is mine." Then, "A pleasant cooperation, Ms. Grace." "A pleasant cooperation." After hanging up the phone, Grace walked to the desk, pulled open the drawer, and took out the divorce papers she had prepared long ago but had hesitated to sign. Without a moment's hesitation, she signed her name at the bottom. The pen tip scored the paper, irrevocably severing the ridiculous entanglement of the past 3 years. She placed the signed agreement on the most conspicuous coffee table in the living room, then calmly began to pack her suitcase. She didn't have many belongings, most were things the Fu family had acquired when she married. She took none of those, only carrying away the few items that truly belonged to her. Dragging her suitcase to the door, she cast a final glance back at the luxurious yet cold estate. It had never offered her the warmth of a home, and it never would. She took out her phone and sent Marcus one last text message, a brief forward sentence, "Divorce papers on coffee table." Then, she decisively blocked and deleted all his contact information. Her phone buzzed, it was a call from Marcus. She immediately turned it off, removed the SIM card, broke it, and tossed it into the nearby trash can. Divorce Marcus was in a meeting when he saw the text message. His brow twitched, and an inexplicable surge of irritation welled within him. He immediately called back, only to hear the cold phone turned off notification. For the next few hours, he repeatedly dialed her number, sent messages, all to no avail. He ended his meeting early and drove back to the estate. In the living room, the signed divorce papers lay quietly on the coffee table, her name glaring at him. He hurried upstairs. The bedroom was emptied of her belongings. The closet was half empty, and the few skincare products she regularly used were gone from the vanity table. The entire space was so clean it was as if she had never existed. An indescribable panic seized him unexpectedly. He thought she was just throwing a tantrum, that like before, he could coax her or give her the cold shoulder for a few days, and she would eventually come back. After all, she loved him, didn't she? How could she truly leave? He leveraged his connections to track her movements, but found she had acted with extraordinary resolve. She hadn't used any registered transportation, hadn't checked into any hotels, and hadn't returned to her parents' home. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Days passed, then a week. Grace remained without a trace. Marcus grew restless and irritable. Everyone at the company was on edge, and the atmosphere at home was terrifyingly low. He found he couldn't adapt to life without Grace. No warm water prepared in the mornings, no light left on when he returned late at night, no stomach medicine silently offered when his stomach ached. Those details he had once taken for granted, even dismissed, now became countless needles, pricking him everywhere. Only then did he belatedly realize that woman had, unknowingly, permeated his life. What troubled him even more was that the agreement concerning Eleanor, which he kept in his home office drawer, seemed to have been disturbed. A terrifying suspicion formed in his mind. Had she seen it? A month later, Marcus finally uncovered information about Grace. She had gone to Riverside City, and was spending a great deal of time with Owen. When his subordinate reported seeing Owen's car appearing for several consecutive days outside the apartment complex where Grace was temporarily staying, Marcus smashed the crystal ashtray near him. Owen! How could it be Owen? He immediately called Owen, his tone icy cold. Owen, stay away from Grace. On the other end, Owen chuckled, his voice dripping with undisguised mockery. Mr. Marcus, by what right do you order me? As her ex-husband? Grace is free to see whoever she wants now. You. Furthermore, Owen added unhurriedly, I'd advise Mr. Marcus to focus more on his own affairs, as the outcome of the acquisition is still uncertain. After all, losing both a project and your wife isn't a good look. With that, he hung up the phone. Marcus listened to the dial tone, his face so dark it could drip ink. Grace? He was already calling her by such an intimate name? A furious rage at having something of his coveted, perhaps even taken, mixed with a panic he refused to acknowledge even to himself, surged wildly in his chest. He immediately arranged his schedule and personally drove to Riverside City. He found the apartment complex using the address, but downstairs, he witnessed a scene that nearly froze his blood. Grace walked out of the building, wearing a pale yellow dress he had never seen her in, which made her complexion appear even fairer. On her face was a faint smile, the kind of carefree ease that had long vanished when she was with him, and was leaning against a nearby car. Seeing her emerge, he naturally went to meet her, his arm effortlessly encircling her waist. He bent down and whispered something in her ear, causing her to turn her head slightly, her smile deepening. That intimate and natural posture stung Marcus's eyes intensely. He abruptly pushed open his car door, strode over, and seized Grace's wrist, his grip so powerful it felt like he might crush her bones. Grace! Have you caused enough trouble? His voice was hoarse, laced with suppressed fury and an almost imperceptible urgency. Come back with me. Grace winced in pain, frowning, and tried to forcefully pull her hand away, but it was futile. At that moment, Owen intervened. He gripped Marcus's wrist with skillful, firm force, compelling Marcus to release his hold. Mr. Marcus, Owen said, shielding Grace behind him. A smile still played on his lip. But his eyes had turned cold. Don't you think it's inappropriate to lay hands on my girlfriend in broad daylight? Girlfriend? Marcus's pupils constricted. He looked at Grace, utterly disbelieving. What did you say? Grace, explain yourself. Grace rubbed her reddened wrist, looking up at him with calm, unwavering eyes, as if she were looking at an insignificant stranger. Was Owen not clear enough? Her tone was detached. Mr. Marcus, we're already divorced. Who I'm with now is my business. I forbid it. Marcus almost roared. He tried to grab her again, but Owen firmly blocked him. The tension between the two men was explosive, ready to ignite at any moment. Grace, however, gently linked her arm through Owen's. Her voice was quiet, yet clearly reached Marcus's ears. Owen, let's go. Didn't you promise to take me to the art exhibition? Owen. She had never used such an intimate tone when calling him. Marcus stood frozen, watching as Owen considerately opened the car door for her, shielded her as she got into the passenger seat, and then drove off, leaving him in the dust. Under the sunlight, that pale yellow silhouette stung his eyes. On the way back, Marcus drove furiously, a ball of fire burning in his chest, with nowhere to vent it. Girlfriend? How long had she been gone? A month. And she was already so eager to fall into another man's arms? And none other than Owen, his sworn rival. She's doing this on purpose. She must be trying to provoke him. He tried to numb himself with work, but the image of Grace and Owen standing together kept replaying in his mind. He began to suffer from insomnia, drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and his temper grew increasingly volatile. He deployed more resources to track Owen and Grace's movements, but the feedback indicated their relationship was stable. They were often seen together, and Owen was exceptionally attentive to her. Jealousy gnawed at his heart like a venomous snake. He couldn't accept that the woman who once had eyes only for him was now smiling sweetly at another man in the blink of an eye. He intensified his commercial attacks against Westwood, trying to force Owen to let go, or to make Grace return and beg him. However, after several confrontations, Owen not only held his ground but accurately predicted Marcus's moves several times, causing him to suffer a few minor setbacks. Marcus had a vague feeling something was wrong. Owen seemed unusually familiar with his decision-making processes. Meanwhile, issues began to surface within Sterling. Several ongoing projects were successively stalled, previously agreed-upon partners suddenly backed out, and the stock market experienced unexplained fluctuations. Amidst this chaos, he received an invitation from Owen to Westwood anniversary reception. He knew it was likely a trap, but he had to go. He needed to see with his own eyes what Grace was up to, and he wanted Owen to know who the real winner was. For reception, Westwood anniversary reception was a grand affair, gathering numerous distinguished guests. When arrived, the grand hall was already filled with clinking glasses and lively chatter. He spotted Grace in the crowd at once. She was wearing a sapphire velvet gown that accentuated her graceful figure. A brilliant diamond necklace adorned her neck, highlighting its elegant curve and lending her an extraordinary air. She was linked arm in arm with Owen, smiling charmingly, exchanging pleasantries and mingling with ease. She was a stranger to him, yet so dazzling he couldn't tear his eyes away. The woman he knew used to be somewhat timid and quietly subdued when she was by his side. But now, beside another man, she radiated a captivating brilliance. Marcus tightened his grip on the wine glass, his knuckles turning white. Owen also saw him. Across the crowd, he raised his glass in a gesture, a meaningful smile playing on his lips. A moment later, Owen, with Grace by his side, walked directly toward him. "Mr. Marcus, your prise. NCE truly graces our humble event." Owen greeted with a smile, his arm naturally circling Grace's waist. Marcus's gaze was locked on Grace, his voice cold and hard. "Grace, we need to talk." Before could speak, Owen tightened his arm, drawing her closer into his embrace. He chuckled softly. "Mr. Marcus, talk about what? If it's business, we can schedule another time. As for private matters..." He turned his head, looking at Grace with tenderness. "I don't believe there are any private matters between you and I that concern my wife." "My wife?" Those three words exploded in Marcus's ears like a clap of thunder. He whirled to look at Grace, his eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Grace met his gaze, offering a slight smile. She took out a small marriage certificate from her clutch bag and gently waved it in front of him. "I forgot to tell you, Mr. Marcus," her voice was soft, yet carried a deadly impact. "Owen and I got married last week. Now, I am officially Mrs. Owen." The red marriage certificate, like the fiercest flame, seared Marcus's eyes. She actually married Owen? While he was still agitated and distraught by her departure, while he stubbornly believed she was just throwing a tantrum and would return eventually, she had quietly become the wife of his sworn rival. The immense shock and fury of betrayal instantly overwhelmed his reason. "Grace!" He roared her name, his eyes bloodshot. Taking a furious step forward, he reached out, intending to drag her away from Owen. Before his hand could even touch Grace, Owen's bodyguard subtly intervened and separated them. Guests nearby were drawn by the commotion, turning their heads and whispering amongst themselves. "Mr. Marcus, please mind your surroundings." Owen shielded Grace behind him, his expression calm but his eyes sharp with warning. "Harassing my wife gives me the right to ask you to leave." "Your wife?" Marcus scoffed as if he'd heard the most ridiculous joke. He stared intently at Grace, his voice bling with fury. "Grace, tell me, what is going on? Is he coercing you? Did he use some means to force you?" He couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that the woman who once loved him to the point of humility could be so cruel, so resolute. Grace looked at the discomfited man before her, her heart chilling. Once, how she had longed for him to show even a hint of genuine emotion for her, even anger. But now, she only found it laughable. "Coercion," she softly repeated, a scornful curve forming on her lips. "Marcus, you're always like this, accustomed to speculating about others with the greatest malice, yet never reflecting on yourself." She took a step forward, her sapphire velvet gown trailing on the floor, her presence commanding. 3 years of marriage to you, and what did I get? Endless indifference, the ceaseless lipstick stains on your dress shirts, and a place in your heart forever reserved for someone else. Her voice wasn't loud, yet it clearly reached everyone present, causing a stir. Marcus's face was ashen. Those were just for show. Just for show? Grace interrupted him, her eyes sharp as knives. What about Eleanor? That agreement in your home office drawer, the one using my marriage to ward off misfortune for her, was that also just for show? Boom. Marcus's mind went blank. She really had seen it. He opened his mouth, wanting to explain, but found any words seemed pale and futile in the face of such an ugly truth. The surrounding gazes turned strange, and the murmurs grew louder. Warding off misfortune? What does that mean? It seems Mr. Marcus married his ex-wife to ward off disaster for his first love? Oh my God, that's just disgusting. No wonder Mrs. Owen left him. Marcus had never been so humiliated, feeling as if he'd been stripped naked and thrown onto the street. He looked at Grace, at the undisguised hatred and triumph in her eyes, and his heart clenched with a violent pang. No. Grace, listen to me, that agreement. He tried to salvage the situation, his tone carrying a hint of pleading he didn't even notice himself. Enough, Grace coldly cut him off. Marcus, we're even now. She linked arms with Owen and turned to leave. Watching her and Owen walk away side by side, thinking of her as another man's wife, and recalling the icy look she had given him moments ago, Marcus felt a destructive impulse rush to his head. He recklessly broke through the bodyguard's obstruction and grabbed her arm again, his grip terrifyingly strong. Come with me. Grace. I forbid you to be with him. He had almost lost his mind, his bloodshot eyes filled with obsession. You're mine. Even if we're divorced, you're still mine. The scene became quite chaotic for a moment. Owen's face completely darkened. He signaled his bodyguards to forcibly pull Marcus away, but was like a madman, clinging desperately to Grace and refusing to let go, veins bulging on his arms. Marcus, Grace said, wincing from his painful grip, her brow tightly furrowed. Her eyes showed no trace of emotion, only endless mockery and icy coldness. Take your filthy hands off me. Filthy hands. Those two words, like ice picks, made Marcus's fingers tremble. Taking advantage of his momentary stiffness, the bodyguards finally managed to completely separate him. Owen held Grace tightly in his arms, looking at Marcus, who was restrained by the bodyguards but still glaring their way. His voice was as cold as ice. Marcus, out of respect for our past acquaintance, I won't pursue tonight's incident. But if you ever dare to harass my wife again, I won't hesitate to make Sterling pay an even more painful price. He paused, scanning the surroundings, his gaze sweeping over the guests secretly filming with their phones. His voice rose, carrying an undeniable declaration, and I ask all of you to bear witness, Grace is now officially my wife, Owen. Anyone who causes her displeasure will be making an enemy of Westwood. These words served as both a warning to Marcus and a declaration of Grace's status and position to the entire social circle. Marcus was escorted out of the grand hall by bodyguards. Standing outside the hotel in the cold night wind, he heard the faint music and laughter from inside. Recalling's cold, hateful gaze and Owen's protective stance, he felt a chill permeate his body and his heart twist in agony. He had lost. He had lost the project, lost face, and, more importantly, he had lost the woman he once treated like dirt, and now regretted beyond measure. The days that followed were a nightmare for Marcus. Sterling's troubles not only didn't subside but intensified. Projects that had merely been stalled now successively failed, key technical staff were poached by Westwood with high salaries, the stock market was maliciously shorted by unknown forces, and stock prices plummeted. What alarmed him even more was that Owen always seemed to be one step ahead, precisely grasping Sterling's lifeline. Every move he made struck a vital point. That feeling of being completely seen through and powerless to retaliate almost suffocated him. He vaguely suspected that all of this was likely connected to Grace. She had been by his side for 3 years, and although she didn't participate in core decision-making, she was not entirely ignorant of his business habits and Sterling's internal affairs. Was it her? Helping Owen against him? This realization tore at his heart. Sterling was teetering on the brink. With immense pressure from the board and troubles both internal and external, Marcus had visibly wasted away in a short time. He tried to contact Grace, but her phone was unreachable. He went to places where she might appear to intercept her, but was always stopped by Owen's people. Until he received news that Owen and Grace would be jointly attending a prestigious charity auction gala. This might be his last chance. Balcony disregarding his image, he followed Grace midway through the reception, seizing the MO. meant she went alone to the balcony for some fresh air. On the balcony, the moonlight was beautiful. Grace leaned against the railing, gazing at the distant nightscape, her profile serene and cool. Grace. Marcus walked up behind her, his voice hoarse and dry, laced with unprecedented humility and pleading. Can we talk? Grace didn't turn around, her tone indifferent. Mr. Marcus, is there anything left for us to discuss? I know I was wrong. Marcus began with difficulty, those 3 words feeling utterly alien to him. The situation, I was a bastard. That agreement was from a long time ago. I didn't know you'd see it. He spoke incoherently, trying to explain, but only dug himself deeper. I know I wasn't good to you in the past, that I neglected and hurt you. I admit it all. He looked at her indifferent back, his heart tightening. As long as you'll come back, the position of Mrs. Marcus will always be yours, everything of Sterling can be yours, and from now on, I'll only have you. This was the utmost promise and concession he could make. Grace finally turned around slowly. Under the moonlight, her face was still beautiful, but her eyes were cold as ice. Marcus, she smiled softly, a breathtakingly beautiful yet utterly chilling smile. You look truly pitiful now. But I don't care anymore. She told him, word by word, clearly, your position as Mrs. Marcus, your Sterling, your affection, to me, they're all worthless. Why? He closed his eyes in pain. Is it just because of that agreement? Just because of Eleanor? Not entirely. Grace stepped forward, standing before him, looking up into his bloodshot eyes. Her red lips parted to reveal the most cruel truth. I forgot to tell you, that so-called warding off misfortune claim. She paused, satisfied to see Marcus's pupils suddenly constrict and his face instantly turn ashen, before unhurriedly continuing. Initially, I fabricated it and deliberately made sure Eleanor accidentally discovered it. Marcus was struck as if by lightning, frozen in place, his mind a complete blank. Wha.at? She made it up? She watched his incredulous, world-shattering expression, her smile deepening, laced with the thrill of revenge and a hint of pity. Otherwise, did you really think Grandpa's pressure alone could force you to marry me? I simply exploited your selfishness and that ridiculous, deep affection you had for Eleanor to achieve my goal of marrying you. What a pity, she sighed softly, her tone as cold as a knife. 3 years of marriage confirmed that you are indeed a complete scoundrel, utterly unworthy of any effort from me. So, I chose to end the game, take back everything that belongs to me, and, she leaned close to his ear, whispering in a voice only they could hear, drag you and your Sterling down to hell together. With that, she no longer looked at his ashen face, gracefully turned, and walked toward the grand hall entrance. There, Owen was smiling as he extended his hand to her. Marcus stood frozen on the balcony, his body cold, as if he had fallen into an abyss of ice. So, from the very beginning, he had been a pawn on her chessboard. What prosperity-bringing destiny, what warding off misfortune claim, it was all a meticulously planned deception by her. What he believed was controlling the whole situation, what he believed was bestowing a marriage, what he believed was planning for Eleanor. From beginning to end, it had all been part of her scheme. This massive reversal, this absurd truth, was like a dull knife repeatedly carving into his heart, making it impossible to breathe. He watched her place her hand in Owen's, the two exchanging a smile, then walking away together, their silhouettes perfectly matched and a painful sight. And he, betrayed by all, his career crumbling, had become a complete joke. Thank you for watching today's story. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.